Welcome to Ladder Daily Digest. Today we have Derrek Part 2, and he has recently started his channel called the Mormon Atheist. And as we noted before, Derrek is not a scholar. So everybody, when you ever see Derrek, just think he's not a scholar, and you cut him some slack. He read the Bible and the Book of Mormon back to back over the period of about a month and a half, and he just noticed some things that were commonalities, and he just wanted to explore that more. He's done a lot more research, and he thought he would present it as like a study group. And I said, let's do a study group with just two, and people can leave comments. And I didn't happen to notice any comments from last time that were worth talking about. Did you?
No, I didn't.
No.
There was a good one though. I don't remember exactly what it said, but there was a
So we'll look at that again, and maybe next time we'll bring it up if it will add some value to this study group. And so, Derrek, thanks for coming on. And what do you got for us today?
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Gene. And today we're going to do chapter 2. So we're in the Book of Mormon, okay, and this is chapter 2 of First Nephi. So if you go back and you watch the previous video, that was chapter 1. That was my very first time ever doing this, so I was super nervous, fumbling my words. Gene caught me a whole bunch of times. So please bear with me on that video. Hopefully this one is a little better, and hopefully I'll get better as we go. So bear with me.
That's right.
Okay, so
someday it'll be a classic.
That's right. That's right. All right. So chapter 2. Let's dive in here. What is chapter 2 about? So chapter 2 is about the Exodus, believing in the Word, the warning of non-belief. Nephi becomes a prophet, and they're going to the they are promised the promised land. Okay, so let's get into that. So verse 1, right off the get-go. So a little bit of background as to why we're doing this, or I'm doing this, is so we can just go through the book and kind of see what's in it. A lot of people have never even read this book, and they go to church for 30 years and they've never read this book. And
or their readings of it have all been in the context of what the church wanted to show as part of a lesson, not as a whole book or a whole, story.
That's right.
And so,
that's right.
So you're comparing the stories in the Bible with stories that exist in the Book of Mormon.
I'm reading it. I am LDS, but I haven't been to church in many, many years. I'm very far removed from the church. My family is very much active, all that sort of thing. And so I'm reading this book as a book, just flat a book. That's it. So cover to cover, no thumbing through, reading, Alma and then flipping back and reading Second Nephi, and none of that kind of stuff. Just straight cover to cover. And it's a really interesting book. I really highly recommend people reading this book. It's a phenomenal book. It's very complex. We'll get into all that towards the end, but so as for now, let's get started. So verse 1. So verse 1, right off the bat, we start off with truth claims, convincing the reader again. This we're going to see many, many, many times all throughout the book. Literally almost in every passage, every verse, there's truth claims, convincing the reader how true this book is, right? Examples are it came to pass. It came to pass all throughout that. It came to pass means it's true, right? So we'll get that out of the way. We'll head down to verse 2. So in verse 2, let's go to verse 2. And a lot of this stuff, I want this to be interactive. So I want you guys to actually look this stuff up. Don't take my word for any of this. Look it up for yourself. Okay. Don't kill the messenger. This is just stuff that I haven't noticed. So in verse 2, they say, towards the end of the passage, it says, "Behold, they seek to take away thy life." So this is Moses, right? If you remember in the Bible, Moses is leaving Egypt to escape the Pharaoh's death penalty, right? So there's a lot of parallels between the Book of Mormon and the Holy Bible, not the translated version, right? So we're talking the Holy Bible here. So there's a lot of this stuff out of there, right? So this passage actually reminds me of a few things. One is Enoch, of course. The same thing happens to Enoch, right? He's escaping, and they're gonna take away his life, right? But it also reminds me of the Smith Mormon family journey, right? It's very much lines up with the journey of the Smith family, kind of an autobiography, if you will, right? In a lot of ways. I actually wonder if Nephi is Joseph Smith. Let that sink in for a minute, and when you read this book, read it in that kind of a context, right? There's a lot of similarities to the Mormon migration, the Smith personal family history, these kinds of stuff, but they're hidden. Unless you're looking for them, you're not going to find them. So you have to look for this kind of stuff, right? This goes back into the complexity of the book. I do not believe that this book was written in 90 days. If it was, there is no way possible. Any of you authors out there, tell me if you could come up with a book like this in 90 days. If you can do it, more power to you, but I just have a hard time believing that. So let's go down to 2 and 3. Verse 2 and 3, well, I'm actually going to read verse 2 and 3. So chapter 1, verses 2 and 3 in your Book of Mormon. So 2 and 3 is, and it came to pass that the Lord commanded my father, even in a dream, right? Even in a dream, that he should take his family and depart into the wilderness. Verse 3. And it came to pass, right? It came to pass, right? It came to pass that he was obedient unto the word of the Lord, wherefore he did as the Lord commanded him. Okay, so the purpose of these is, so if you read chapter
Yeah, like it came to pass is almost like saying this really happened.
Yeah, it's a claim, right? It's a claim.
Right.
So they're basically saying in 2 and 3, verse 2, we better get out of Dodge, right? We got to get out of here because they're coming for us. If you remember in verse 1, they're saying, they're going to take your life. So, you need to figure it out, right? And then verse 3 is the vision, right? They have the vision. That's going to be important later on is the vision and the get out of Dodge is what I call it. Verse 2. All right, so let's skip over to verse 4. Verse 4 is to leave everything behind, right? They leave your possessions, your gold, your silver, all of your inheritance, the silver, precious things they took with them, the family and provisions and tents, and departed into the wilderness. Okay, so these passages so far also go along with Moses. If you read the 5 books of Moses in the Bible, I'm not giving you the passages because I want you to read these books. These are fantastic books. You should know who and why you are paying these people for your salvation. That's my thing, is you should know what it is that you're paying for because you're paying for this. So let's go to verse 5. So this is so these passages, we have the Red Sea, right? The Red Sea is a common motif in Moses as well, right? The Red Sea, all throughout the Bible. So my point with verse 5 is being that the Red Sea motif is all throughout the Bible, right? And a lot of these motifs that we're going to talk about kind of over and over again, you have to remember, you go to our last video, the Bible was written first. Okay, timelines are very, very important when you're talking about truth claims to history, as both the Book of Mormon and the Bible do. So timing and dates are very important, very, very important. So the Red Sea, the Bible was written first, remember. So the passages of the Red Sea, Moses, all of this kind of stuff in the Book of Mormon are directly taken out of the Bible, and we'll at the end of my presentation, I'll bring that point to a point. So let's skip down to verse 7. Verse 7 is we're going to get into Joseph Smith's personal life now. Okay, I want to know what Joseph Smith was like before the Book of Mormon. Who was Joseph Smith? Who was his family? What did they do? What did they think? Right before the Book of Mormon, before any Book of Mormon or any Mormon anything came about, what were these people like? Okay, so in verse 7, we're going to get a little bit of a taste of that. Verse 7, we have the altar and the offerings. Okay, let me read the passage here. And it came to pass that he built an altar of stones and made an offering unto the Lord and gave thanks unto the Lord our God. Okay, so the thing with the offerings, you have to go into ancient times. Herodotus, Diodorus, these kinds of people, Ptolemy, Pliny the elder, right? Not Pliny the younger, Pliny the elder, right? Because we want to go as far back as we can with what we know, right? You read these kinds of texts, and because these are the originals, right? And if you read these texts, you'll also find a lot of biblical discoveries that you probably are completely unaware of. But offerings is the magicians. The magicians did the offerings. And what were they offering to, right? Well, if you read some of those texts, you'll find out that these cults and stuff, when a king or a queen died, they became deified. So they're actually all sacrificing to their king that has became a god, right? He was such a good king, and only good kings could this happen to, because they were so worried about what would happen to their bodies after they died. That was their incentive to be a good king, was their burial, right? They wanted to ensure that they got all their proper burial stuff, right? Nobody stole their gold, their riches. So these are where offerings and sacrifices and altars even come from in the first place, from the magicians. And you can look back at who these magicians were, right? A lot of them are actually biblical characters that we call prophets, and we'll get into that at the end. So you have to look at ancient texts. If you're going to get into the Bible and you're going to be a serious Bible person, I would say don't read these texts, because if you read Diodorus especially, it's going to blow your mind. It will totally blow your mind, because it has nothing to do with any sort of religion whatsoever, and it will blow your mind. You will see the Bible in Diodorus, and that was 60 BC is when that was. So let's move on to verse 8. So here in verse 8, let's read verse 8. Verse 8 is, and it came to pass that he called the name of the river Laman, and it emptied into the Red Sea. and the valley was in the border near the mouth thereof. Okay, well, we know where the Red Sea is at in today's world, right? Historically speaking. What flows into the Red Sea? Um, that's where Mesopotamia is. So on a historical level, you have to remember this chapter 2 is based in 600 BC. Okay, this is chapter 2 in the Book of Mormon. It's based in 600 BC. So in 600 BC, was there a river named Laman that flowed into the Red Sea? We know a lot about that place, and if you can find it, please put it in the chats down below as to where this is. I'll take a look at it. I'll take it into consideration, and on the next video, we'll talk about the comments that you guys make. So please put your comments down. So they're clearly talking about Mesopotamia here. What is in Mesopotamia? That's the Sumerians are in Mesopotamia. There's a whole, you can look at the Amanu Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh. These stories predate the Bible, and they have flood stories in them. They have, there's all kinds of similarities to the Bible, and this stuff was written long before the Bible. So for all you mystics out there, we kind of hit the altar thing. I'm going to throw you a curveball here. I want you to look up the name Laman. Look that name up and find out what a layman is. Now, I'm not talking layman with a Y. Okay, spell it the way it's spelled in the Book of Mormon, and find out what that is. And I think you'll be surprised. And a Lamuelet, Lamuel-et. Look at what a Lamuelet is. And again, this is where we get into Joseph's personal life. What was his parents doing? His parents wrote books, so that you can't tell me that this guy was illiterate and didn't know how to read and write and all this stuff. His parents are authors. The guy owned a printing press. He wrote the Book of Mormon, for goodness sake, right? So how can he be illiterate? All right, so then moving along here. Look at also one more thing is look up what a deacon is. A deacon. Find out what a deacon is, and I think you'll be kind of amazed with some of the iconography and wording and stuff like that that's in the Book of Mormon that actually represents Joseph Smith's personal life, right? Some of the names of these places, right? So let's get into verse 9. Here we see the fountain of the sea, okay, and the fountain of righteousness, okay. So these words, fountain of the sea, so in the Book of Mormon, it's actually called fountain of the Red Sea in verse 9. And when my father saw that the waters of the river emptied into the fountain of the Red Sea, okay, that's the third sentence down, he spake unto Laman, saying, oh, that thou mightest be like unto the river, continually running into the fountain of righteousness. Okay, so those are very important because the fountain of the sea, right? You take out the red part, fountain of the Red Sea, like it says in the Book of Mormon, and you go to fountain of the sea and fountain of righteousness. All through Enoch, that's the wording that he uses, is fountain of the sea, fountain of the righteous. And when I'm talking about Enoch, I'm only specifically talking about book one, not 2, 3, and 4. Okay, those came after Joseph Smith died. So exit those out of your mind. Anybody that wants to argue book 2, 3, and 4, I'm not listening to you at all. We're going book one only, because that came out in 1821. And we'll get into that date. Remember, the dates are important. The Book of Mormon came out in 1830. Okay, Verse 9, the righteousness. So anyways, now we're going to jump down to verse 16. Chapter 2 it's an interesting chapter, but it's really kind of just compounding on chapter 1. So you should still read it just for the sake of our segments here, so you can follow along with us, right? And then next week maybe or something like that, we'll do chapter 3. So then we'll get to 16. Chapter 16, First Nephi. If you look at this book as an autobiography, okay. Remember, Joseph Smith could possibly, it's plausible that he could be Nephi. So in chapter 16, he boasts about himself. Who was Joseph Smith again, right? He was, everybody says, I don't think you'll get any argument from anybody. He was a handsome, strapping lad, right? The word lad is very important because I know the argument about the word lad. It's a very common word used in that day, so the word lad will just breeze right over that. I do know the argument, and I don't believe it. So let's just leave it at that. Okay. All right. So 16. And it came to pass that I, Nephi, began being exceedingly young, nevertheless being large in stature, and also having great desire to know of the mysteries of God. Wherefore, the mysteries of God is important. Wherefore, I did cry unto the Lord, and behold, he did visit me, and did soften my heart, that I did believe all the words which he had spoken by my father. Wherefore, I did not rebel against him, like unto my brothers. So he's a little boastful. That's all. I kind of thought that was a funny passage, because you can see Joseph Smith's character in that passage. That's why I liked that passage.
It's almost like I'm younger, but I'm smarter and I'm stronger than you guys are.
He's a strapping young lad. What did he like to do? He liked to wrestle everybody, right?
That's right.
So the mysteries of God. What are the mysteries of God? So here again, we have to go to antiquities. They're called the histories, right? Diodorus, the Library of History is the name. There's, I want to say 40 books. It's either 20 or 40. I can't remember. 20 or 40 books that is in the Library of History, Diodorus. Herodotus, I want to say it's 10. I can't remember. Right now I'm on.
I think in the last podcast you mentioned those things, and people can look at the.
I'm on
part 1.
I'm on like book 7 right now, Diodorus. Or I mean, not Diodorus, Herodotus. Yeah, I've already read Diodorus, and Diodorus I highly, highly, highly recommend. Yeah, I mean that's it. That will blow your mind. I literally had to stop at some times and collect my thoughts and be like, oh my goodness, what are they talking about? But so anyways, so the mysteries of God. So you have to go back to these people, Diodorus and Herodotus, to find that out. What is the mysteries of God? So the mysteries of God are, they're trying to figure out what day and night is. Why does it get cold? How come on our harvest, the 7 sisters, the Pleiades, doesn't line up every time? Why do we get sick? Why do we have the plague? Why are we suffering? Right? These are the mysteries of God.
Why would there be a drought?
Exactly. And this is where all of the problems and situations in the Bible and the things they're doing and all this kind of stuff, this is where this all comes from, is the mysteries of God. That's what they're actually called, are the mysteries of God. So you can also take that to a cultic level, right? And it takes on a whole nother thing, but Smith and family was involved in the occults. You're sadly mistaken if you think otherwise. They are very much into the occults. So let's go to 19 through 24. Okay. So 19 through 24, here's where the supremacy starts. Okay. And what I mean by supremacy is I mean the Mormon supremacy. We are the chosen ones, and if you don't believe, then get lost, right? So 19. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I eventually will, through the rest of my presentation, read the whole thing, but for this particular sake, I'm not going to. So it really gets hot and heavy towards 24. We'll get into that in a second, but verse 24.
So is this second Nephi chapter 24?
No, we're still in First Nephi chapter 2.
First Nephi chapter. Oh,
verse 24.
Okay.
Yeah, but so this is 19 through 24 is what this little segment is right here. So that segment right there, Nephi also becomes a prophet in that section, verse 19, 20, and 22. Also, if you watched our last video, you'll know that I mentioned something about the witnesses. I don't believe that the witnesses were the witnesses per se, right? I think they were some kind of a group. And this is my own little conspiracy theory here. Some of you out there know much more about this than I do. Actually, a lot of you do, because I don't really know much about it at all. But so, what happened to the witnesses? Well, verse 23 and 24 tells you what happened to the witnesses, or what could happen to the witnesses if they don't go along with the plan, right? Let's just read it here. 23. For behold, in that day that they shall rebel against me, I will curse them, even with a sore curse, and they shall have no power over thy seed, except thou shalt rebel against me also. So the seed is also going to rebel against him. And that's hang on one second here. So the seed is also going to rebel against him, right? Generational down the line. So 24, and if it so be that they rebel against me, thou shalt be scourged unto thy seed, to stir them up in the ways of remembrance. What happened to the witnesses? Every one of them left the church under some, you historians know this. They all left the church. Every one of them did. All the witnesses left the church, and so, or they got excommunicated from the church. So, you tell me, is 23 and 24 about the witnesses? I don't know.
And a lot of them went to form their other churches or went to join another church. And as far as we know, not very many of those churches lasted very long.
Yeah. Sidney Rigdon, I think he had the largest out of all of them, the largest church out of all. I could be wrong about that, but from what I understand, he left and started another church, and that church really flourished, and then that also died as
well. Sidney wasn't a witness.
Yeah, he wasn't a witness, but he was a very important person he was one of the major financiers.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of history there that I do not know. I concede I don't know this history. So I would like, however,
but are you thinking then that in a way Joseph Smith was having some sort of like a veiled threat to people who fell away?
Oh yeah.
Through that
it's verse. All throughout this book. Yeah, through that verse specifically, but all throughout the book, it talks about if you don't believe in the church, you're ostracized, right? You're out. You're out of our club. We don't want you no more. So that's literally all throughout the Book of Mormon. So since we were talking about 23 and 24, let's go back to verse 20. I want to go back to verse 20. This is where the promised land comes in. Okay, so this is right before, well, this is actually when, this is part of the process of when Nephi is becoming a prophet. This is verse 19, 20, and 22. A little bit of 21. 21's a little just kind of a run-on sentence, but so verse 20 is, and inasmuch as ye shall keep my commandments, ye shall prosper, and ye shall be led to the land of promise, ye, even a land which I have prepared for you, ye, yea, a land which is choice above all other lands. So my question with this passage, and this is a legitimate question that I have, does the Book of Mormon rewrite history? We have, some examples of that are the river of Laman, the valley of Lamuel, Zarahemla, Mulek, Zedekiah's son, right? Well, that is Mulek, is Zedekiah's son. The third son that in world history does not exist, along with Zarahemla. This guy has one. We can argue if Nephi is a literal historical figure or not, but the Book of Mormon literally rewrites history. That's all I'm saying. So let's move on. So remember how I said it gets hot and heavy in 23 and 24. So in 23 and 24, you have the eternal curse, right? For non-believers. If you're a non-believer, you have the eternal curse, and I see. So for generations to come, even your generations to come will be cursed. That's pretty heavy. That's a big ask, right? You're asking me to believe in your book. And if I don't, eternal damnation is coming my way, right? I would like to say for any religious person, Mormon or otherwise, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that? So what have we learned? What have we learned here? So what we've learned is you can take chapters 1 and 2 in the Book of Mormon, and you can open up your Bible to Daniel chapter 4, and you can read everything we just talked about in the Book of Mormon. Isn't that crazy? Literally, you can read everything from Daniel chapter 4 that we have just talked about in the Book of Mormon is in Daniel chapter 4. The only difference is it's Nebuchadnezzar, right? Nebuchadnezzar is talking to Daniel. And what is Daniel's name? Let's go to chapter 9 in the book of Daniel. This is going to be for you mystics out there. Let's find chapter 9 in Daniel. What is Daniel? Who is Daniel? That's the question here. So chapter 9, let's see, chapter 4, verse 9. Let's start out with chapter 4 in the book of Daniel, verse 8. Let's go to verse 8. Okay. But at last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar. Belteshazzar is Daniel's name, right? According to the name of my God. Look up Belteshazzar and see what God he's talking about. And in whom in the spirit of the holy gods, right? So, O Beelzebub, who is Belteshazzar? O Belteshazzar, verse 9. O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians. Here we go again with the magicians. Okay, what is Joseph Smith? He's a magician, a seer, a soothsayer, right? A necromancer. And I don't mean necromancy in the way that you're probably thinking, you sickos. I'm thinking the myths, the occults, necromancy. he's a
I think
necromancer.
necromancy means like being able to talk to the dead or something like that.
That's right. And so so I don't want to get into that, right? I'll let you guys dive deeper into what that actually is, right? But I'm just saying that there is a lot of occultic stuff in this book. Look up what a lamial is, a layman. Okay, a deacon. Look up what a deacon is for all you deacons out there. I was a deacon once. I remember, you know, I think I made it to, I think I was a teacher when I stopped going.
You
Yeah,
know what?
I think I might have been a teacher.
We might have to provide links in the description to some of those descriptions, that some of those definitions that you're talking about, so that it'll be a little bit easier. Because I tried to look a couple things up and I couldn't find exactly what you were talking about. So we'll get together and we'll put in links in the description of these definitions of these words that you're talking about. We'll go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely everything that I've been saying. You can actually find this stuff.
But we don't want people to
findable.
be sort of lose their way by trying to find it and then not being able to, and then not wanting to watch any more podcasts because they can't find what you're talking about. So what we will scrounge up some links so that you can, the listeners can be able to follow along better.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely provide those to you. All right. So where were we?
So Daniel's
Master
name
of the
change.
Magicians, chapter 9. Yeah, so he changed it to Belteshazzar, right? Belteshazzar, you're going to have to go to the antiquities to find out who that is. Okay, and I say that because I want you to read this stuff. I want you to see it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Do your own homework and find out for yourself. Because I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, put it in the chats below and let's talk about it. Because I want to learn also. Like we said in the beginning, I am not a scholar. I'm just a guy that read some books, and this is what I found. So, all right. So my last page here. So we talked about the Book of Daniel. Also some Enoch references in the Book of Daniel chapters. So we're in chapter 4. We want to go to verse 13, 17, and 23. Okay. There's where the mentions of the watchers are, right? The watchers. That's in Daniel in the Holy Bible, the Old Testament, okay? Book of Daniel, chapter 4, verses 13, 17, and 23. He mentions the watchers. What does Enoch talk about? The watchers. Okay, here again, dates are very important. We know that we don't know exactly when the Holy Bible, the 5 books of Moses, were written, but we have a pretty good idea of the New Testament, which was written around 100 AD, right? Around. The Book of Enoch is guesstimated to be about 200 years after that. So about 300 AD is when the Book of Enoch, they think, was written. The reason they think that is because it mentions the New and the Old Testament. So you have a motif. So that's where your timelines come into place. One book is written first, then the second book writes about that book, then the third book writes about those 2 books, the fourth book writes about those 3 books, and that's how you find your timeline. Okay. So also, I found some really interesting stuff. And I definitely want you guys to fact check me on this one. So especially the Mormon historians, I definitely want you to fact check me on this. In 1832, okay, the Book of Mormon came out in 1830. So in 1832, in the Evening and Morning Star paper, that's Joseph Smith paper, right? In August of 1832, Joseph Smith himself puts out an article. And in this article, he's talking about how the book is being translated. in this article in 1832, August 1832, in the Evening and Morning Star, he's talking about how the book is in process of being translated. So this is in 1832. So he is clearly talking about the JST versions, right? The Joseph Smith translations. So the name of this article, okay, this is the kicker here. The name of this article is, oh, where did I put it? Oh no.
You can look for it. We can cut this little part out.
Oh, here it is, right here. The name of this article is called "The Extract from the Prophecy of Enoch." That's the name of the article. Okay. So there's another one though as well. It's called the Millennial Star. Okay, it's volume 1. Parley P. Pratt was the editor of that magazine, pamphlet, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure what they actually are. So this article is called the Apocryphal Book of Enoch. Okay, so this is in 1830. These dates are very important because I know there's a couple of guys out there that say, like, you know, Enoch 3, 4, and 5, there's no way he could have had these. The thing with these people is they talk really fast, so you can't get a word in edgewise, and they verbally vomit numbers out at you. And you can't.
These people meaning
can't,
Mormon apologists.
yes, you cannot get a word in edgewise. And there's a guy, Hugh Nibley, right? This guy is a pretty renowned professor. There's actually a video you can. I can actually provide you the link to the video where he, in the very beginning of his, he's at BYU and he's talking to his classroom. Right off the bat, he starts telling you about how Enoch is hogwash. It's got nothing to do with the Book of Mormon. But then he teaches Enoch the entire hour. He's teaching Enoch. So how does that work? And you can actually look him up. There's several. I mean, the guy was around teaching this stuff for over 50 years, right? So there's plenty of stuff on YouTube you can find about him talking about Enoch. Another thing I would like to know is why the cover up? Why go through such the lengths? Why go through such the lengths? Because you got to pay these people. You got to pay them. You have to, if you Google anything, if you Google any of this stuff, the first 15 pages are Mormon apologetics. You got to go to like page 30 to find something that's not a Mormon apologetic. And so the lengths of the cover up, and a lot of this stuff is really dumb. Why are you covering this stuff up? Like, it's stupid, you know, it makes no sense to me. But regardless, it is covered up. Sometimes the cover up is worse than the crime itself, right? I would personally think that if this really was written by Enoch or from the books of Enoch, you should say that. I'll bet you'd have 100,000 more people come and join your church tomorrow if you said that. So he's clearly talking about the Book of Moses. The Prophecy of Enoch is the name of the article in the Morning and Evening Star. The Apocryphal Book of Enoch is in the Millennial Star. Also, you can read First Nephi 13, 38 to 42. It talks about how. So in First Nephi, well, let's just read it. It's actually really good. So let's read it. First Nephi 13, chapter 13. Verse, what are we going to? 38 to 42. So 38. And it came to pass that I beheld the remnant of the seed of my brethren, and also the book of the Lamb of God. Well, the book of the Lamb of God is the Bible. We all know that, right? So the remnant of thy seed, okay? That is a remnant of the Book of Enoch, and we'll get into that in a second, which had proceeded forth from the mouth of the Jew, that it came forth from the Gentile. So he's taking books from Gentiles, right? Unto the remnant of the seed of my brethren. 30. And after it had come forth unto them, I held other books, which came forth by the power of the Lamb from the Gentiles unto them, unto the conveniencing of the Gentiles, and the remnant of thy seed, and my brethren, and also the Jews who scattered upon all of the face of the earth, that the records of the prophet and of the prophet of the 12 of the Lamb are true. And the angel spake unto me, saying, These last records which thou hast seen among the Gentiles shall establish the truth of the first, which are of the 12 apostles of the Lamb, and shall make known the plain and precious things which have been taken away from them. Well, you get the point, right? We'll stop reading there. So the Gentiles are non-believers, right? Everybody knows
Right.
that.
And so from what I recall is so the Bible is a Jewish scripture in its original form.
Yeah.
But then the King James translation is they're Gentiles. They're not Jews. They put forth the King James version, and that's where it goes. The Jews made it. King James translated it, but it's missing important things. And the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith are going to add things back to that.
Yeah.
That's what I understand
Enoch.
from that.
Yeah,
like
take
Enoch.
take Enoch. Classic example, Enoch. So Enoch, it doesn't really say much about Enoch in the Bible. It just says that he lived 365 years. God took him up, and he never came back. Okay. So in the Book of Mormon, Joseph goes and explains Enoch's life in the book of, I believe it's the Book of Moses, chapter 7 and 8 in the Book of Moses. It tells what happened to Enoch. It tells where he went, what he did. Well, what other book says that? Name one other book that says where Enoch went and what he did. The Book of Enoch. Book 1. Book 1 we're specifically talking about. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. The Book of Enoch. So then, so I want to say I watched a video today or a couple of days ago, and I don't know how true this is, but I'm going to throw it out there because if this is true, this could be kind of big, I guess, in the Mormon world. I don't know, but so the Community of Christ, right? That's the Reformed, or no, it's called the Reorganized. What is it? What's the whole word for it?
The Reorganized LDS Church, RLDS.
Yes, that's it. RLDS. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so the Reorganized LDS Church is now called the Community of Christ. So they have the transcripts in their complete version, right, of the Joseph Smith's translations. They actually have these in their possession, and it's called the Inspired Version, is what it's called. Okay, but here's the kicker, though. Along with those papers, they also have the papers of Enoch that Joseph Smith used to abridge, right? Because he does a lot of abridgments in the Book of Mormon. So he did an abridgment here from the Book of Enoch to the Book of Mormon. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And the guy that does those videos is a pretty prominent. I can't remember the guy's name offhand, but
is his name John? Is he John Hamer?
I don't know. He's got kind of long black hair and he wears glasses.
Yeah, John Hamer, I think.
Yeah,
we'll try to get videos.
his videos are a little bit slow, but they're so informative because they're part of the Mormon Church too.
That's right. I told John, every time I hear him talk, I feel smarter.
Yeah, he's got some great information, man, and you know, he tells the whole story. He just lays it out there. He's not trying to hide nothing. You can go through all of his videos.
Yep.
And
he
watch
just says,
that stuff.
This is history. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And he actually says you can either like it or you cannot like it, but this is our history. And that is fantastic to me because they're not trying to hide nothing. They're not trying to snowball you and lie to you and get you to pay money for lies. Right. So, the community of Christ. So they have that set. It's a complete text. It's a complete text, right? So with all of this said, you cannot tell me that Joseph Smith did not know about Enoch. You can't do it. How do you rebuke the 1932 article? How do you rebuke the community of Christ having the records themselves? They have them in their possession. How do you rebuke all this stuff? You know, it's at some point you have to call a spade here, and we're only in chapter 2 of First Nephi. Okay, and we're going through the entire book, and this is the process that we're going to do it in. Is like this. We're literally going to break this book down into the personal life, the occults, the book itself, and Enoch. And so fasten your seatbelts, guys, because it gets a lot better.
All right. So,
yeah,
so that's
the end
2.
of my presentation.
There you go. Well,
2.
thanks a lot. Yeah, there's lots of historians have connected Joseph Smith's life to some of the stories in the Book of Mormon, and it's just history. Historians examine things, and they try to put a story to what documents that exist that are in history, and they're just saying, according to the documents, this is just what happened, and we'll provide a link to what John Hamer has done that you watched, and so that's fascinating. Just chapter 2 so far of the First Nephi, and we have all these connections, and you know, we're just amateurs. It'd be nice to, you know, soon we're going to get all these things down into like 20-minute presentations where we go, but we're excited. We're sharing these things just as Derrek has learned them. And, you know, we're figuring this thing out. And thanks a lot, Derrek, for this part 2. And we'll try to get to part 3 pretty soon. And so thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, everybody.